Jumping into Daniel chapter 11 today. Daniel chapter 11, verse 2 to Daniel chapter 12, verse 3. The chapter markings and the verse markings are not inspired. When the Bible was written, they didn't have chapters and verses, and then someone along the way said, you know what, it would be easier to kind of let people know where we're at if we split this up into chapters. And so they split into chapters, and then later on, someone a couple hundred years later said, you know, it'd be a lot easier if we split those chapters into verses so we could really pinpoint where we're talking about. And it just so happened that sometimes when they split them into verses and they split them into chapters, they did it wrong because they didn't ask me first. So we're doing chapter 11, verse 2 to chapter 12, verse 3. And we got a lot of ground to cover, so instead of having this nice, fancy-dancy introduction, we're going to jump into the passage. Daniel's chapters 10 to 12 are all the same vision. Daniel 10 is an introduction to that vision. We studied that last week, and if you weren't able to listen to it, watch it, go back. It might fill in some gaps for this week. Daniel 11-ish is the meat of the vision, and the end of Daniel 12 is the conclusion, and we're going to be hitting the conclusion after Easter. If you thought that Daniel's dreams were detailed before, hold on to your seats, because we're jumping into Daniel 11, and it has so much detail in it. It's crazy. It's basically a condensed history book of the events along Israel's timeline. And through it, Daniel sees, and all those who read this book of Daniel see, that God keeps his promises. Pure and simple. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. There's no and, ifs, or buts. He says it, he does it. We better believe it. We're going to see that God keeps his promises through the two sections of this passage. History explained, future shown, and then we're going to see a choice that is demanded. Before we dive into this long passage, will you pray with me? Father, thank you that you are King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You are sovereignly in control of all things. You're not this wishy-washy God that might get your way, might not, depending on how the dice fall. But you are the I am, the all-sufficient one. You control history and you hold it in your hand and you're molding and shaping the events until finally what you have said will be comes to pass. And the culmination of all time will come, and you will usher us into eternity, and what a glorious day that will be. Thank you, because of your sovereignty, that you are in charge. We can trust you. We can follow you, knowing that you are bringing good, because you are the good God. Forgive us for when we lose sight of who you are, and remind us today of that fact. Give us confidence, and may we follow you in the path that you are forging. Today, Father, as I'm up here, I pray I would decrease and that you would increase. And may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, my rock and my redeemer. Thanks, Father. Amen. The first half of chapter 11 is future for Daniel. All of 11 is future for Daniel, but the first half is future for Daniel, but it is past for us. God gives Daniel a vision of what will be, and we have lived through half of that. Now, the events in Daniel 11 are truncated. It's a big fancy word saying that they're squished, where Daniel sees the future, and Gabriel, when he gives him this vision, hops and skips years sometimes, and hundreds of years, or just a couple of years, because he's given them the Cliff Notes version of what's going to happen in the history of Israel. It's not an exhaustive list, but he's hitting the highlights. Daniel chapter 11, verse 2, Gabriel tells Daniel, "Now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will arise in Persia." Remember, we're under the first king of Persia right now, Cyrus. So he says 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and then a 4th, who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. Then a mighty king will arise who will rule with great power and do as he pleases. And after he is arisen, his empire will be broken up and parceled out toward the four winds of heaven. It will not go to his descendants, nor will it have the power he exercised, because his empire will be uprooted and given to others. This portion that Gabriel talks about here, we've already talked about in other visions, about how the Persian kingdom is not going to last forever, but a great king in Greece is going to come up. His name is Alexander. And as he rises to power, he's going to conquer Persia. He's going to conquer a whole bunch of other nations. And then at the height of his power, around the age when he's 33, he gets killed, and his kingdom is broken up into four kingdoms, just as God foretells here. It goes to his four leading generals. Now, Gabriel is relating events concerning Israel. So as he does that, the focus for the rest of this chapter goes to two of these generals and their lines. He doesn't talk about the other two and their lines, just these two. It talks about the kings of the north, and it's those who have the power base in Syria, later known as the Seleucids. They follow the general Seleucid and his descendants down, and the kings of the north. And talks about the kings of the south, and those whose power base is in Egypt, the line that's known as the Ptolemies. And that's that general Ptolemy and his line going down. So we continue in verse 5. The king of the south, he's in over Egypt area, this is the Ptolemies, will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he and will rule his own kingdom with great power. After some years, they will become allies. And the daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north to make an alliance, but she will not retain her power, and he and his power will not last. In those days she will be betrayed, together with her royal escort and her father and the one who supported her. Now, I can't stop every time, but just to show you how God, when he says it's going to happen, it does, and the detail in this chapter. So the king of the south that's talking about here is Ptolemy the first. The king of the north is Seleucid the first. They do become allies. You can pick up any history book and it'll tell you this. They become allies. Later, a marriage is planned between these two houses. Ptolemy II gives his daughter Bernice in marriage to Antiochus II. Antiochus thinks this is a great plan. He divorces his first wife in order to marry Bernice. They're happily married for a very short period of time. Antiochus II gets tired and says, this wasn't a really good idea. So he remarries his first wife. And as you can imagine, that didn't go very well. A sporned woman, So she kills Antiochus II, kills Bernice and Bernice's son, just as God says, in those days, she, the Bernice, will be betrayed together with her royal escort and her father and the one who supported her. God said it. It happened. The detail. That, as you can imagine, creates a break between the families of the Seleucids and the Ptolemies. And you're going to see that break happen. Now, I do not have the time, unfortunately, to keep stopping and explaining the text. But I gave that to you to show you the detail, and all that detail actually happened. And if you want a more detailed history and how this plays out actually in history, you can pick up a history book, or I can give you some resources as well, and you can see that when God said it, it happened to the detail. One from her family in verse 7 will arise to take her place. He will attack the forces of the king of the north and enter his fortress. He will fight against them and be victorious. He will also seize their gods, their metal images, and their valuable articles of silver and gold and carry them off to Egypt. For some years he will leave the king of the north alone. Then the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will retreat to his own country. His sons will prepare for war and assemble a great army which will sweep on like irresistible flood and carry the battle as far as the fortress. Then the king of the south will march out in a rage and fight against the king of the north, who will raise a large army, but it will be defeated. And when the army is carried off, the king of the south will be filled with pride and will slaughter many thousands, yet he will not remain triumphant. For the king of the north will muster another army, larger than the first, and after several years he will advance with a huge army fully equipped. In those times, many will rise against the king of the south. Those who are violent among your own people will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but without success. That short sentence there acknowledges that these events between these two kings, king of the north, king of the south, Syria and Egypt. Guess what's right in the middle between Syria and Egypt? Israel. So as these generals are fighting each other, they're crossing Israel back and forth, and back and forth. And one of them is claiming control over Israel, and then the other one comes up and claims control of Israel. It's creating turmoil. And within Israel, there is a shift in the leaders on who's following who. You've got the Oniids, who control the high priesthood, and they support Egyptians' rule, the king of the south. But then you have the Tobiids, a politically powerful family. They don't control the high priesthood, but they're politically powerful. They're related in marriage to the Oniids, but they want to support the king of the north, Syria. And so as these nations are battling against each other, Israel internally is battling against each other. It's fascinating. I really wish I had time to talk about this, but I can't. Okay, where are we at? Then the king of the north will come and build siege ramps and will capture a fortified city. The forces of the south will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have the strength to stand. The invader will do as he pleases. No one will be able to stand against him. He will establish himself in the beautiful land and will have the power to destroy it. He will determine to come with the might of his entire kingdom and will make an alliance with the king of the south. And he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom, but his plans will not succeed or help him. Then he'll turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them. But a commander will put an end to his insolence and will turn his insolence back on him. After this, he will turn back toward the fortresses of his own country, but will stumble and fall to be seen no more. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. Like the detail that actually came to pass is, in a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. This next contemptible person is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. And we talked about him a couple weeks ago. He worshipped Zeus, and he put a sacred thing to Zeus right in the middle of the temple of the one true God. And in worship of that, he slaughtered a pig in the temple and scattered pig's blood all throughout the temple and on the altar, which is sacrilege to the Jews. But he did it just to spite them. He was a contemptible person. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure and will seize it through intrigue. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and a prince of the covenant will be destroyed. And after coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people he will rise to power. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot, and wealth among his followers. He will plot the overthrow of fortresses, but only for a time. And he does all this, but it's a short period of time. With a large army, he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south, and the king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army, but he will not be able to stand because of the plots devised against him. Those who eat from the king's provisions will try to destroy him. His army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table and lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will still come at the appointed time. The king of the north will return to his own country with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant. He will take action against it and will then return to his own country. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from what it was before. Ships of the western coastlands will oppose him, and he will lose heart. Then he will turn back and vent his fury against the holy covenant. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the holy covenant. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. They will set up the abomination that causes desolation. That's what I was talking about, that sacred thing to Zeus. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword or be burned or captured or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere will join them. Some of the wise will stumble so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless until the end of time, for it will still come at the appointed time. The detail of this prophecy, like I said, the clock mocks me. I wish I could just go line by line and say, this is who it is. Because every single name, every single king, there's a history line about them that you can research and explains. And it's like, yeah, this king actually did go and conquer Israel. This king actually did go to Caesarea, and this king did this, and this king did this, and this king did this, and blah, blah, blah. It's all there. It's amazing, the detail. And what's also amazing is every single Bible scholar who studies the first part of chapter 11 looks at it and agrees which king this refers to. They all say, yeah, this refers to Ptolemy the first, this refers to Ptolemy the second, this is Antiochus the second, this is this is this. They all like, yes, it's there. Which is why some people say that Daniel was actually written after this all happened, because how in the world could you have such detail in prophecy? Well, it's because God knows what's going to happen. He's the one who's in charge. When he says it happens, he keeps his promises. He does. Now, the prophecy keeps going. But you can draw a line there, because before this, everything I said, all the scholars agree. Pretty much. This is what it's referring to. After this line, no one agrees at all on the second half of chapter 11. Some people say, it's already been fulfilled, and they try to put it with this, that, and the other thing, but it really doesn't fit. Others say, it doesn't fit because it's still in the future. It hasn't been fulfilled yet. And I'm in that camp because if you look at the detail of the first half of chapter 11 and the universal agreement on what it refers to, since the same God inspired it, you'd think that if the second half had already happened, with all the detail in it, that everyone would universally agree, because it would follow along. But they don't, because it hasn't happened yet. We can try to fit it in, but it's not there because we're still waiting for the end to come. And I also believe that since the first half was fulfilled literally, like line by line history, the second half here is going to be fulfilled literally as well. It's not a metaphor because the first half wasn't a metaphor. So the second half can't be a metaphor either. You'll notice that as we start reading, there doesn't seem to be a break from the first half to the second half, because it says, for it will all still come at the appointed time, the king will do as he pleases. There's the break. And you're like, wait a minute. There doesn't seem to be a break, and that's what trips people up so much, because they say, well, it seems to be talking about the same king. It still seems to be talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. But prophecy is like a collapsible telescope. You look at this telescope when it's collapsed, and you're like, it's just one piece. You see that? And you look through it, and you can still look through it, and you say it's just that. But then all of a sudden, you realize, wait a minute, what's this? And you pull it apart. And there's 3 or more pieces there. And you realize, it's still one telescope, but I was missing some things. It's actually longer than I thought it was. When God gives prophecy, he gives it squished. He tells us what's going to happen in the future, but sometimes there's a lot of things that happen between it. And you realize it's a lot longer than it was. Kind of like at the beginning of time when God put Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and they ate the fruit they weren't supposed to, and God cursed them and kicked them out of the Garden of Eden. And in Genesis 3, he tells them that Eve, you're going to have a kid who's going to smash the head of the serpent, and everything that's wrong in this world is going to be made right. Well, from her line did come one. It wasn't Cain. It wasn't Abel. It wasn't all these other kids she had. It was her grandkid. 6,000 years passed between the prophecy that God gave to Adam and Eve and Jesus being born. Did God lie? No, he didn't. He said it was going to happen. He just didn't say how long it would take. But he said, I'm working on something, and it's going to take this long to get there. Same thing here. He's working on something, And Daniel saw it in the future, but he didn't know the distance between them. And we're here and we're still waiting. And God's still working on it. And someday he's going to come to pass. And we're going to look back and say, oh, that's what he was talking about. Because we finally understand it when it is passed to us as well. What seemed seamless to Daniel wasn't really seamless. We keep going. In Daniel chapter 11, verse 36, the king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people and will distribute the land at a price. This passage is referring to the end of the end. It dives into the last week that we studied in Daniel chapter 9. Daniel 9:27 talks about this king in the end of time. He says he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to the sacrifice and offering, and at the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed is poured out for him. This Daniel chapter 11 here, that first paragraph, also dives into the time period from Daniel 7 that talks about this horn sticking out of the middle of a ferocious beast who already had 10 horns. And we're scratching our head saying, what in the world is that? That is this king, is that horn from Daniel chapter 7. This king is this one in Daniel chapter 9 who confirms that covenant. But there's still a little bit of scratching of head going, but what is actually going on? And as we dive into Revelation, we're going to see even more detail about this time period spread out for us, a detail that God didn't need to tell Daniel because Daniel didn't need to know yet. This paragraph refers to a pride, this pride of this king, the same pride that is seen in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 to 14. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn, you've been cast down to earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens, I will raise my throne above the stars of God, I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost height of Mount Zion. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds, I will make myself like the Most High. This king in Daniel chapter 11 is the Antichrist, the accuser, who sets himself up, tries to set himself up against the God of gods and seeks to ruin God's plan. Well, what happens? Verse 40. At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land, that's Israel. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt won't escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver, all the riches of Egypt with the Libyans and Cushites in submission. But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he'll set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain, yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. The second paragraph speaks of a violent end of history. The battle that's being set up there towards the end of the paragraph, lots of people refer to it as Armageddon, that Revelation talks about, the last battle. And people have tried to explain what is happening on that day, and they've written books about Armageddon and tried to decipher Revelation and decipher Daniel chapter 11 and decipher Ezekiel and Isaiah, different verses that talk about this, but this is a future prophecy. It's going to be literally fulfilled because that's what God does. When God says he's going to do something and he proves that he's going to be literal, it's going to be literally fulfilled, but we don't know how that will happen, though. And anyone who says this exactly is what's going to happen at the last battle, it's talking through both sides of their mouth because we don't know. It hasn't happened yet. It is future prophecy. God's the one who's in charge. We know he's going to literally fulfill it, but we don't know how because he is God and we are not. It seems possibly that this last king, the Antichrist, lures two great kingdoms with two great armies to Jerusalem in hopes that at the last moment these nations will join him to fight against the return of Jesus. It seems to be what that's talking about it, but we don't know. All we know is it doesn't work. Whatever he's trying to do to thwart God's plan in the end doesn't work, and he comes to an end, and all those who are with him come to an end as well. Which brings us to Daniel chapter 12. At that time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. And those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase in knowledge. We're going to actually talk about that verse next time. This third paragraph talks about the end of the end, talks about this time of distress that's happening at this time, greater than any time that's ever been. The tribulation period. Revelation dives into that more. But then it speaks of the resurrection at the end of time. There's a book whose names are written, and those whose names are written in that book will be resurrected to life, and those names who are not found in that book will be resurrected to shame and everlasting contempt. Jesus talks about the lake of fire. Revelation talks about that as well. Those whose names are not found written in it are thrown into eternal destruction. We know this is going to happen because God keeps his promises. He fulfilled the first half of the prophecy in Daniel chapter 11. He's going to fulfill the second half of this prophecy in Daniel 11 and verse 12. And he's going to fulfill it literally. It's going to happen. When God says it's going to happen, there's no ands, ifs, or buts. It will happen. The question is just when. So Daniel 11, we have history that is explained. We have future that is shown. But what about us? When God gives prophecy, as I said before, he doesn't give it so that we can have a timeline. That's nice to have, but it's not the reason. The main point God gives prophecy is to change our lives right now. And there's a powerful verse that is nestled right in the middle of chapter 11. Chapter 11, verse 32. Chapter 11, verse 32, talking about the people of Israel underneath the reign of Antiochus Epiphanes. It says, with flattery this is that corruptible king, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Now, as we said before in other sermons, Antiochus Epiphanes, literal king who literally happened, literally was a horrible, wicked, no good, very bad guy. But he presents a pattern of prophecy of kings that come and go who set themselves against God and his ways, culminating in the Antichrist who will come at the end of time. The bearing of these things on our lives, of living in a world that is full of sin, depravity, destruction, despair, chaos, filled with leaders who don't want to know God or follow God. The bearing of these things is that we are to live for the Lord Jesus Christ and honor him regardless of our circumstances. It does not matter who's on the throne. It does not matter who's president or governor or mayor or city council. It doesn't matter who's our boss. It doesn't matter our parents. It doesn't matter our kids. It doesn't matter the bad things that are happening to us or the good things that are happening to us. No matter the circumstances, we are to live for the Lord Jesus Christ and honor him. There will always be wars and rumors of wars. There will always be famines, troubles, persecutions, fires, distress. Daniel had them in his day. We'll have them in ours, and they're going to continue until Christ comes at the end of time. That's the history of the world. No matter what is going on, those who know God are to stand firm. Those who know God are to live righteous lives. Those who know God are to resist evil. Those who know God are called to do great things as God prospers us. So So the question is, knowing that God keeps his promises and that the end is going to come as God says it will, with the resurrection of the godly and ungodly, are we living for it? Are we living for it? Those who know God are called to stand firm, live righteous lives, resist evil, do great things, but I just started that sentence with this huge big caveat. Those who know God. Do you know him? Do you know him? When I sat in a session, I had this sermon prepped 2 weeks ago. But we had a session yesterday. I was listening to it, I was like, he stole my thunder. And then we had another session, we're like, he stole my thunder too. Come on. There's a difference between knowing God and knowing God. The demons know there is a God, and they tremble because they know they're going to be thrown into hell for all eternity. It's one thing to know, yes, I know that there is a God. I've talked with some people in our community. They're like, yeah, I know there's God. I'm spiritual. I believe Jesus is God. Don't want to follow him. They know there's a God. They even confess that Jesus is a God. But they look at me square in the eyes and say, but I don't want to follow him. They know God, but they're condemned to hell for all eternity. Do you know him personally? Has there been a moment in your life where you said, I realize I'm a sinner, and I need Jesus and him alone to save me, and I want to enter into a relationship with him and trust in his death on the cross to save me from my sins? Where we take the knowledge of our brain and we allow it to go down to our heart. As Paul wrote in Romans chapter 10, that those who confess with their mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in their heart that God raised him from the dead, they will be saved. God did not call us to a mental religion, but a religion, a faith of our whole life of following him. Has there been a time where you have made the decision to follow Jesus? If there hasn't been, you do not know him personally. He is not your Lord, and the resurrection to life is not yours. So I beg you, today, make the decision to trust Jesus, to follow him with your life, to believe in him to save you, so that truth is yours. If you do know him personally, you've made that decision, whether in the past or today, we are called to live for Jesus, to honor him no matter what, to stand firm, to live righteous lives, to resist evil, to do great things. No matter the circumstances, we say, this is the path. And our life and our emotions are saying, but this, and but this, and but this. And we're like, no, this. This is what it is. Is that your focus? To live for Jesus no matter the circumstances. Is that your focus? Very practical application. Easter is coming up. We know that God's going to keep his promises. We know that one day the clouds are going to open up and Jesus is going to appear and he's going to call his own to him. And all those who are not his are going to be doomed to eternity of despair. And then that moment there will be no time for someone to say, whoops, I was wrong, I want to go with you. Enough is enough. It's done. In the face that God keeps his promises, that's going to happen. What are you going to do between now and Resurrection Sunday to talk to people about him? What are you going to do to invite them to at least one of our services? So I encourage you to think about three names of people that need to come to church on Easter weekend. We have cards on the back table where the bulletins normally are with information about our church, with all those times that we're going to have services on Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Take 3 of those cards. Take 9. 3 people, you can give them to them 3 times. Take 9 cards. stick them in your pocket, and from now until sometime, pray for them every day, that God would give you an opportunity to invite them to church, and then invite them. Not just once, but multiple times. First time you invite them and say, hey, we would love you to come. A couple days later, invite them again. Not so we can be obnoxious or offensive, but so they can have no excuse. And when they don't come, they can just look at our eyes and say, sorry, we didn't want to. Not because we gave them an out, but because they made the choice not to come. Think of those names, write them down, pray for those people, and grab those cards. Will you pray with me? Father, thank you that you are the God who is in control. And we are so looking forward to when you come again and call us home, and that will be a great and glorious day. But Father, until then, remind us not get caught up in the life we are living and lose focus of the eternity to come. Forgive us how we practically each day live like you don't keep your promises. Redirect us. And as we think about Easter Sunday coming, I pray you embolden us to do the work of the evangelist, to tell people and call people to you. Thanks, Father. Amen.